Welcome everyone to the web series where I can never get the intro done in just one take, Pack and Review. After looking at some very lackluster sets over the past 5 episodes today, we're taking a look at a set that I think, very confidently for that matter, might be able to surpass that so elusive 50% barricade. Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow Specters. Alright everyone, welcome to Pack and Review, and as I said, today we're going to be doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow Specters. This set, which came out in November of 2013, is one of my favorite sets of all time. However, I'm going to put the bias aside for the purpose of getting a serious, thoughtful review. Shadow Specters wasn't originally penciled in for this season, as I had planned to do something completely separate with a lot of sets from this XL era. However, with the inclusion of Star Pack 1 and 2, and the fact that every pack that we've reviewed thus far has absolutely sucked, and the clamoring of support from a lot of fans have wanted to see a cool set, or a set that I give a good review, and I figured that out of all the sets that we have right now that I could get access to easily, Shadow Specters was probably going to be the best bet. But as I said, in the interest of fairness, I'm going to grade, as always, on 3 things: history, price, and meta. Now, that's right, I've simplified contributions to meta because not only does it look smaller on the screen here, it just flows better. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into history, and I'm going to see how historic this pack really is. Now, unlike Star Pack 1 and 2, Tactical Evolution, and Cyberdark Impact, all of which are older packs that have been out for years, some of them, and some not so much, but the majority of them are much older and from different eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole, this pack came out very recently. It was November of last year, so it was a good 9 months ago, but that's still somewhat recent, at least as far as the tournament scene is considered. So to look at this historically and say, wow, all the nostalgia is really not going to do much of anything for us. But times do change rather quickly in Yu-Gi-Oh! And with pendulums on the horizon and many cards from Shadow Specters kind of dropping in price a little bit, I think our findings might be relatively interesting. Historically, the cover card is number C96 Dark Storm, which is the Chaos evolution of number 96 Dark Mist. You could rank him up with one of 1,000 rank-up magics, but it's really not worth the investment because the card as a whole is not good. It's quite cool, and I do like it, and I will say that as someone who was not a huge fan of Zexal as a series, the episode in which Dark Mist and slash Dark Storm made its appearance I thought was quite awesome, at least by Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime standards. With that being said, that's about the only nostalgic sense that I'm getting from this. Some other historical cards, quote-unquote, that I guess were once hyped to be the next big thing would be cards like Mistake, which is now a $10 card, more or less, and when it came out, people thought was going to be between 60 to 100 bucks per copy. Melier of the Trees as well was another card that was supposed to be game-changing, but really hasn't done much of anything at all, despite being a pretty good card. So, historically, there's really not a ton to look at here. We do have Ghost Trick Alucard, which is cool. Pot of Dichotomy, which is also cool. Shadow Vampire, which is another one that had some hype when it came out, but really didn't amount to much either. There are some cool cards in the set that people thought were going to be a big deal, but they didn't really do all that much. But I can remember when the set came out that everybody and their brother wanted to pick up a bunch of cards. The Shadow Vampire was like 20 bucks a piece, and I tried building a vampire deck, and it sucked, and all that crap, but, you know, historically, this has not panned out too well. With that being said, if you look at it from a different perspective, as far as what it contributed to its time, I think we can find that it's rather historically significant. Cards like Bujin Mikazuchi, Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, and Ghost Trick Alucard saw play when they came out, and still see play now. Not to mention, they're still pretty cool cards that are somewhat elusive. At the same time, cards like Lady of the Lake, which is a Noble Knight support, was heavily hyped to be significant in the deck, and then the deck didn't really take off. Yes, I know there's a very overpriced box coming out with the Noble Knight cards this November, but that doesn't change the fact that the cards such as Lady of the Lake, and even Noble Knight Boars, and a couple of the other ones that came out in this set were relatively overhyped. Not to say they're not good before everyone starts to criticize me, just to say that they're not what everyone thought they would be. At least not yet. So, for history, considering the fact that the set did have some neat cards, although it hasn't done all that much, we're going to give it a 2 out of 5, which I think is being a little bit more than fair, but when you take into account the fact that some of these cards had a ton of hype around them around the time they came out, and the fact that some of them still do see play, I think it's fair. Moving on to price. Price is a category in which this set is very pleasing to me because there are at least 10 cards in it which break, say, $5 to $10 range. According to TCG Player on eBay, the most expensive card in this set currently would be the Ghost Rare Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, which averages $27.99. It's followed very closely by the Ultimate Rare Ghost Trick Alucard, which averages $26.75. Two cards that, as I said, still see a lot of play, and are both very hard to get, at least if you're a budget player. If you have money to drop, I'm sure they're not that difficult. Now, the Ultimate Rare and Secret Rare versions of Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand follow up those two, both of them relatively close to $25. The only difference would be cents, and I'm not going to diverge into that too much. The Ultra Rare version of Ghost Trick Alucard gets about $25 per, with some going as low as $21 and some hitting a little bit like $26, $27. Really depends on the person, the edition, and really just the time and the place. That is then followed up by Pot of Dichotomy and Mistake, and that's where you get a little bit of a drop-off. The average price on Pot of Dichotomy is $24.45. The card is seen play in hand decks, and people have always, whenever a card comes out that has to do with Pot of, and then revolves around drawing and things like that, the card's going to get hyped. I think Pot of Dichotomy is good. I think it combos interestingly with, you know, just what the hands are capable of doing, what trap tricks are capable of doing, and just decks that benefit from being able to play multiple types without throwing off their consistency. As far as Mistake is concerned, it's a good counter to things like Fire Fists and Boojins, but again, those decks aren't really as prevalent as they once were or once expected to be. Could they be pushed back up to that point? Absolutely. But I feel like the game is kind of heading in a different direction, and I'm not sure how practical Mistake is, despite carrying a now $14 price tag on average, despite the fact that it used to be about 35 bucks a copy. I mean, granted, no game changes prices as vastly as the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG because even Pokemon and Magic have relatively decent longevity considering there are other formats in which those cards can be played. But the point here is that Mistake was once very hyped and very expensive, and now it is relatively cheap, at least by Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards. We take a big dip down then to Millier of the Trees and Bujin Mikazuchi, the latter going for $7.62, and the former going for roughly 10 bucks on average. Millier is a card that I remember being about 20 bucks, and a lot of people were trying to pick it up, but it seems to be not doing what everyone expected, despite being a relatively good card. And other than that, we have Shadow Vampire and Lady of the Lake, which range around 7, and then you're getting down into $3 territory, or $5 maybe, depending on where you're looking after that. So, price-wise, the set does have a lot of cards that can range decently high. The best part about a set like this is the fact that there are at least 5 cards that break the $20 margin, so if you buy a pack for $3.99, your profit margin is actually quite expansive, or at least has the potential to be, which is one of the things I like about a set like this. So for price, we're going to give it a 3 out of 5. I like what it brings to the table, and I like that it does contain a lot of cards that have potential to go back up should they see play, should they see hype, things like that, including cards like Ghost Tricks and just a lot of other things that, you know, just to name a few, Labradorite Dragon, some of the Noble Knight support, Return of the Monarchs, cards like that can see increases in play on the drop of a dime, depending on whether or not cards come out that make them broken. So I think the price potential for Shadow Specters as a whole is pretty good. Finally, would be meta. Now, I touched upon this a little bit, and I'm going to touch upon it just briefly again because there's really not too much more to say. Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand is absolutely the best rank 8 in the game, and should be played in any deck that has the ability to make rank 8s. The same argument can be made for Ghost Trick Alucard in the level 3, or rank 3 rather, standard. Alucard can pop a set card, it's easy to bring out, it's dark, and it sets up all sorts of plays, especially in its own deck, but even in other decks, just being a generic rank 3 that can get rid of back row. However, with artifacts being very popular right now, I'm not 100% sure this is exactly the route you'd want to take. That doesn't change the fact that Alucard is one of the best rank 3s in the game. Felgrand, as I said, is beyond good. Pot of Dichotomy is starting to see a lot more recognition from players, although I think it's going to need a little bit more time before it gets to that staple status that its brother Pot of Duality had. But it's starting to see a rise in price, and the ability to draw 2 cards and shuffle stuff back into the deck is definitely worth considering. As I said, Mistake is quite good as a counter card, and I think it's still, I believe it should be higher in value than it is. I do believe it's going to see another rise in prominence, especially if more decks come out that abuse searching. Melier of the Trees is decent, but I'm not too high on it personally, and when you get to cards like Bujin Mikazuchi and Lady of the Lake, you have cards that are very good in their respective decks, but may not command a high price tag due to easy accessibility. That should by no means downgrade them from being significant in the meta. Plus, cards like Bujinte Kagutsuchi, Ghost Trick Lantern, Return of the Monarch, Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus, just to name a couple more, are all really good cards that definitely have potential to go up in the future. So as far as the meta is concerned, I feel as though this pack contributes a lot, despite only having a small number of cards that do so. Because this pack has plenty of cards that still see play on the tiers 3 through 1 level, I feel like it's only fair to give it a 4 out of 5 in terms of meta. And if cards like Felgrand and Elucard weren't so good and so just, absolutely necessary in so many decks, I might be a little bit lower with this grade, but I see no reason to do so. So when you recap that, we give it a 2 out of 5 on price, a 2 out of 5 on history, a 3 out of 5 on price, and a 4 out of 5 here, which gives us a total of 8 out of 15. Now, when you put 8 out of 15 in the calculator and do your math, you get a very extensive number, which is somewhere around... Ooh, boy, this is the thing. See, a lot of people have told me that I should probably do my calculations before I do the video so I don't sound silly just sitting here and talking to you all as I do them. The only reason I don't do it that way is because I like to have the legitimacy of actually sitting here and reviewing it and forming my opinions on hand as I work with stuff. However, if enough of you believe that that's the way that I should take it, then I guess I'll adapt my style. With that being said, the final score for this pack is a 53.3333%, which does break our 50% margin and does in fact make it the best pack we've reviewed thus far. However, if Shadow Specters, which is regarded as one of my favorite sets and one of the best sets that come out in a while, got a rating of only 53%, you really have to wonder what packs have the potential to top that. With that being said, as always, it is now time to crack this open and see what we can pull. And I just want to let you guys know that as of Season 2, when we do these openings, I'm going to be doing more than just one pack per. Money's been a little bit tight right now, so it's been a little bit cheaper to just do one at a time because I try to focus on content. However, I realize that people also like to see openings, and as such, I want to try to appeal to everyone. So while the rest of this season is going to be filmed with just one pack per opening, I am going to be doing, say, 3 to 4 per opening once we expand into the next season. So this is a first edition pack of Shadow Specters, and I just bought this, so let's see if we can't pull something exciting out of Shadow Specters. Bujinji Centipede, Dragon Shield, Mira the Starbearer, Terrene Tooth Tsukumo, Token Bomb, and an ultra rare Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus. That's kind of cool. Now, I don't really play Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively anymore, so I'll generally trade away or sell any of the stuff that I pull, but always pulling an ultra rare is cool, and it's the first foil that we've actually pulled since we started doing these packs in review, so that's actually really awesome. And we got Malifrous Fork, White Dragon Wyverburster, and Ghost Trick Yukiona. And I suppose I should quickly give these an honorable mention as well, the White and Black Dragons, as I do believe they have potential in the future to do more than they've done thus far. I didn't mention them when taking anything into consideration because there isn't a future segment of this series, at least not yet, but I do believe they have potential, and I felt like that was worth mentioning. So, our final grade is 53% for this pack, which is a grade of D, or E. I think we'll go with, we'll go with E, unfortunately. It looks like it's an E. It's still in the same range as Tactical Evolution, but it has performed over the 50% mark, which means, on average, it is better than all the other packs we've opened so far. And here we've got Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus, which is a cool ultra rare and one I'm pretty happy to have pulled. And hopefully we can continue this upward trend of packs getting better instead of getting worse. If anyone has any comments or criticisms regarding the show format, or any of the content that we discuss, I'd love to hear it, because I'm trying constantly to improve and make this as good as possible. One of the things that I did mention that I'll be doing in future installments, starting with the next season, we'll be opening multiple packs at a time. We've got a little bit of a stand here so that I'm not playing with the pack and it's all completely set up and everyone can just pay attention without any distractions. And of course, we've added the images and stuff on the suggestions of other people. What can we do to make the show better? By all means, let us know. Send us a message, leave a comment, or even get in touch with us through other means. I often advertise these videos on Reddit and Pojo and other sites, so if you're watching and you're from that site, feel free to respond in the allocated area, and we'll be more than happy to take any comments and concerns that you have into consideration. I really like doing this show, and I've had a lot of people tell me that they enjoy it, and I just want to make it better. With that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and invite you to check us out on Facebook and Twitter, where we do post things that you might be interested in, and let you know about upcoming projects and things like that. And I'd also like to encourage you to stay tuned, because we have a new web series that's going to be premiering very soon alongside this one, although I think it'll be premiering at a different time. So keep checking back for more details on that. And on behalf of us all here at Loveshack TCG, my name is Braden. This has been Pack in Review, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.